Good morning, young ladies. Davette, is it Davette or Davette?
David.
Davette and Audrey, it's good to see you. One thing we did last week was our rain stick. I see Audrey had hers. Here's mine. And it's noisy, isn't it? What we didn't do last week is decorate it. So because rain sticks were used by Native Americans for musical instruments and to summon rain if they needed rain, I decorated mine with a bunch of Native American symbols on mine. Things will keep forever, filled with rice, dried rice, uncooked rice, and uncooked popcorn. So it'll be making noise for years if you keep it in good shape. Scout handbook are pretty self-explanatory. The only thing that's a little tricky is getting this long piece of aluminum foil the same length as your tube or your cylinder, and then you scrunch it up like this. Scrunch it up into a skinnier piece, and then you wrap it around a broomstick or another dowel or something, and so it makes a curve like this. You're going to make a windy little wraparound thing, and then you insert that into your tubes. And the point of that is when all the rice and the popcorn is in there, it hits these pieces and it makes this little jangly sound. It kind of slows down the rice too, so that it falls gradually instead of all at once. And then you just tape up the ends and decorate it. So not hard. The only tricky part was wrapping the aluminum foil around the broomstick or whatever you use to wrap it around some kind of cylinder. The other thing we did, I'm wearing one of the things we did. See I'm gonna take this off and show it to you closer. I made it into a necklace. This is I made mine out of air dry clay, and I think I sent you all the recipe for that. And then it made an impression, and then I just painted the impression. This was a little piece of a fir tree, or like a leaf, part of a leaf, or the fronds from a fir tree. Here's another one I made. Let's see, where is it? I figured you could use these for Christmas decorations, especially if you made your impression a pine cone or something that looks like a tree. That could hang on your Christmas tree as a Christmas decoration if you didn't want to make it for, your own personal jewelry. So those are the things we talked about last week. And then this week, some of you all were going to try to make a galaxy shirt. And the first thing you need is a dark t-shirt and some fabric paint. That's pretty much all you need. You tried that, Audrey? Let's see yours. Hold it up. Okay. Oh, you hadn't started yet. Okay, great. What you need to do, I found it works best to squirt your paint into a small dish. And I'll wait if you've got everything ready, and we'll go step by step.
A bowl or something.
If you just squirt a little bit of paint. Oh, the very first thing you do is get a piece of cardboard and put it inside your t-shirt so it won't soak to the other side. So just some kind of piece of cardboard to protect, so that only the top layer, not the back of your t-shirt, gets the paint. Okay, you got a piece of cardboard to put inside it?
My cardboard is on there.
Okay. Just slip your cardboard inside the t-shirt so only the front gets the paint on it.
Go get you a box.
What? Oh, I see, you're smart. David is working outside so she won't get paint all over her mama's kitchen or something. That's a good idea. Okay. Now, you got a sponge, Audrey?
Yes.
Okay, dip your sponge in the paint. Don't get a whole lot of paint, just a little bit. And then dab it on the shirt. I'm going to show you the one I made. I didn't use a t-shirt. I used a really warm winter night shirt. paint, and then I kind of took off some of the paint with the spun, or sprayed it with a spray bottle of water to make the paint be not real dark. And then I drew this little circular thing like a galaxy. So mine has 3 galaxies on it, and then a bunch of white paint flecks for the star. So you can make whatever design you want. I thought it would look like a galaxy if you dabbed a little bit of paint on in, you know, however many you want circles. They don't have to be perfect circles, just sort of something that looks like a big cloud in outer space. Now, after you do that, if that's the only one you're going to do, then you take your toothbrush, an old toothbrush, dip it in your paint. What you would do is face it toward your shirt and get kind of close to the shirt. You don't put a lot of paint on it, and just run your fingers like this. Or you could do like that, kind of pop the toothbrush, but usually that gets a big glob on there. If you just do like this with your fingers, it'll make what looks like little stars. Now, when you're all done, when you like the way it looks and you've got all the stars you want, you need to just set it aside and let it dry. Keep the cardboard inside so the paint won't soak through to the back. And just set it aside. This paint dries pretty quickly. It'll probably be dry, totally dry in a couple hours. You know, when we first started talking about all the requirements for this badge, we said there were 3 things you need to do. You need to look closely, listen carefully, and be creative. So you all have certainly done the third part of this one. You were certainly creative with your shirts, and you've done a great job. While you're finishing up with all your stars, I want to talk about another thing we discussed last week was be creative in looking at wildlife. We said there's all kinds of animals, some big, some small. In our own backyards, we probably have little smaller ones. And think of a way that one of these animals could make himself more at home with or more comfortable in our environment. And they gave an example of a bullfrog in the deep south in hot weather, that if a bullfrog could grow a wide tail like a fan and it could fan him as the weather got hot. That was one thing I thought was pretty creative, thinking of what kind of weird animal, you know, would make a change to adapt to his environment. And I thought about a goose who flies in the air and then likes to land and swim in the water, but usually they fly and then land on the ground and then walk over to the water, waddle over to the water. But if a goose had feet that could extend and be like skis, they could land directly on the water. So if you wanted to draw a picture of the bullfrog or a goose who made a special adaptation to his environment, you could paint it, you could draw it, you could use this same clay that we made, or some of you may have done the salt mix too, the salt bake, and you could fashion that into an animal. But anyway, that was one of the requirements too. You think of an animal and make an art piece out of it, a drawing, a painting, a collage, or a sculpture that would show you how that animal could adapt. While you all are putting away your materials and getting your t-shirts out of the way, we're going to talk about some of the other requirements for this badge that you could do at home pretty easily. One of them is if you have a camera or a cell phone camera. I love the one about go from large to small. Take a picture of something straight on that's rather large, like maybe a large flower, and then zoom in, get a little closer look, keep zooming in until you get the tiniest little part of that in a close-up. And you could make a collage or a sequence of photographs and show from big to small. And I bet you would show anybody, your parents or your friends, you could show the large item, whether it's a flower or a leaf or whatever. But then they would be able to know what that is. But then I bet they would not even be able to guess as you zoomed way into the smallest part. So that would be something fun and easy to do if you have access to a cell phone camera or a regular camera. Okay, one of the last things in your handbook, I think it's step 5, and you're supposed to pick one item from each step, and you can certainly do more if you're interested in that particular thing. But was the birdhouse. Design a birdhouse that doesn't really look like a birdhouse. Like the one in your manual, your handbook, looks like a lighthouse. Question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What would be something else you could draw? They suggest that if you're really interested in this, you could actually build it. I don't know how many of you would have access to the materials to build a lighthouse birdhouse, but let's just assume we're going to imagine for a minute and not be building it. We'll just be drawing it. What would be something else you could build a birdhouse in the shape of that birds wouldn't expect or you wouldn't expect? You could build a church with a tall steeple on it. Or you could build something like the Capitol in Washington, D.C., or the Alabama State Capitol with a rounded dome. Usually you don't think of something with a round top to be a birdhouse. Oh, look at all those stars. That is beautiful. I love that, Audrey. That is really good. Devette, you want to show us yours? Hold it up again and show us, or move your screen down. Oh, that's wonderful. You all are so creative. You can be called the Galaxy Girls now. Okay. Somebody tell me another design we could use for an odd-shaped birdhouse that doesn't look like your typical.
A castle?
A castle. Wouldn't that be cool? And you know what you could use for that? A smaller version of these same kind of tubes. If you had like maybe toilet paper rolls, and you could make little spires for the castle, and then draw a paper cone on top. All those things would be easy to draw, maybe a little harder to make, but you could draw them and paint them or make a collage out of them. Those would be fun. One other thing under that same step 5, if you wanted to do something in addition to or instead of the birdhouse, is you could design a terrarium. Has anybody ever heard of a terrarium? Or you know what it is? It's plants growing inside a glass. Sometimes it's shaped like a globe. Sometimes it's a long, wide tube. An old jar could work for a terrarium, but you plant little tiny plants that don't grow very tall in dirt, and put that all in the terrarium, and then just give it a little bit of water and screw the top on, and the humidity of a little water in a closed space will help the plants to grow. Of course, you have to keep it in the sun. They need sun. But, oh, you got a license plate. But, oh, I love that. Isn't that neat? Did you make that?
Our neighbor gave it to us when we moved in.
That is a great idea. Use an old license plate for a birdhouse. That's a wonderful idea. Okay, so you all have all kinds of great ideas for how to finish up on this badge. That's the one thing I love this Outdoor Explorer badge. You get to do some art, you get to use your imagination, and really that's one thing I love about art. There's hardly ever a wrong way to do anything, because you say, well, I'm the artist, I chose to do it that way, so it's right for me. You all are just really good, creative young ladies, and I know you're going to have a great summer and enjoy finishing up this badge and maybe starting on another one. There's a lot of badges you could do while you're home and can't get out very often. So have a great summer. I've enjoyed being with you. Thanks for having me.